This segment is an introduction video to Cherokee crafts and designed to offer the basic steps in craft making. The following video is presented as a service to various communities, schools, and organizations in hopes of perpetuating Cherokee culture.
OCO, Robert Lewis, I work for the Cherokee Nation as school community specialist. Going to make baskets today. Cherokees and a number of different tribes all had their way of making a basket. Each one's a little bit different. Cherokees is known for a unique style. We make a double wall basket. We have examples of baskets here behind me. And we had a flat style that we used with the flat reed, and we also used round reed baskets. Now, traditionally, we'd go out to areas like this. You have the river, the creeks, we'd go out there and gather our materials, and we'd use that for our baskets. So as we were sitting there working with our baskets, you'd be going in and out as you're working. But we needed the baskets for everything because we're an agricultural society. We had to go out there and you had to farm. Now you had hunting, you had people going out there hunting deer and going out there and catching bear and going out there and hunting turkeys, but if you couldn't catch them, and you couldn't get them back home to your families, you had your gardens. And you didn't want to carry everything in your hands back from the gardens to try to feed everybody. Like trying to feed everybody in your family, you're carrying it all in your hands. So you needed the basket. So all the tribes had to know how to make a basket. So when we wove our baskets together, we go out there and you'd go out there and gather your materials. You use river cane, willow branches. You can use white oak strips from trees to make the little slice sections for the baskets. We have some examples of the large one back here. They would use like white oak. They would take the bark off it and then they would slice it down and they would make these strips and they would use that to weave their baskets. The round reed baskets use honeysuckle, buckbrush, things of that nature.
In your basket kit, you will have a start. We call it a start because we've started some of the work for you. You will also have about 5 pieces of natural color runners, and you will have 3 pieces of color. This start is composed of a few different parts. These are called spokes that come from the center, just like spokes on a bicycle wheel. They're always in pairs. There's always 2 pieces to a spoke. We never want to split those apart. We always want to pretend like they're glued together. This is called the runner. This is what runs around and forms the basket. So when you get your start, you're going to take the runner and unwind it and stretch it out a little bit. And then you're going to start weaving. To weave, you're going to take your runner and go over a set of spokes and under a set of spokes. And what you can do as you weave is always push in with your finger. So you go over, under. Always opposite of the last row. So here the last row went over, so I know that I'm going to go under on this row. As you weave, you want to make sure you're bending your runner. Really bend it down and then back up. You don't want to bend your spokes out of the way because if you keep bending your spokes back and forth, they can get weak and brittle and they can break off. If your spokes break, then you might have to get a whole new start, or we can show you a pointer on how to fix that later. You want to make sure that you keep your start and all of your runners nice and wet. So if you have a tub of water like the one I have, or maybe your sink, you can keep all of these in the water. We make sure that everything is wet so that way it stays nice and pliable and flexible. If this material gets dry, it can become brittle and it can break really easy. So while you're weaving, if you notice that this starts to feel dry, or if the material starts to look very white, you want to take it and just dunk it in the water for a few seconds and then bring it back and keep weaving. If you notice, as I'm weaving, I just keep turning the start. I mentioned earlier it kind of looks like a bicycle wheel. Keep weaving the way you're comfortable. You can keep turning this. Just keep weaving however you feel comfortable weaving. Now I've come all the way to the end of my runner. I want to make sure I weave it all the way down to the very last little bit. So now we're going to start a new runner. So for now, you want to keep using this natural color runner. You want to wait to add color until the walls of your basket have started to turn up. If you put color on now, it will be on the bottom of your basket and you won't be able to see it. It won't look as pretty. So I'm going to take my new runner and unwind it just like I did when I started weaving. Just stretch it out a little bit. Your new runner is going to start right where the old one stopped. So this runner stops right here on this spoke, and it's stopping on this side. So my new runner is just going to overlap it. It's just going to make a little cross right there on top of the old runner. And this one is on top of this spoke. So I know that it needs to go underneath the next spoke. Now I'm going to hold my finger here until I've come all the way back around once, and then the runner will hold itself in. Okay, I've gone all the way around once, so now I can let go, and I can just keep weaving the same way I was before. Now this is about the right size to start turning up the walls of our basket. So what I like to do is take the whole start and grab all of the spokes and hold it kind of like a whisk, or maybe it looks a little bit like a jellyfish. And now I'm just going to gently pull on the bottom of the basket, and that's going to start to push my spokes in the direction I want them to go. So now when I let go, you'll see that those spokes are turned down to start forming the walls. Now as I weave, I can turn this upside down, that way all of these little points aren't up in my face. And I can keep weaving over and under just like I was before. Now as I weave, I'm going to put a little bit of pressure on my runner. I'm going to tug on it just a little bit, and that'll start forming those walls a little bit more. Because we want the walls to curve down, we don't want them to keep coming out flat. We'd like this to be a basket, not a plate. So I'm just going to keep going over and under, pulling on it just a little bit until those walls start to form really well. You can also use the palm of your hand to sit right on top, and then use your thumb to gently push on those spokes as you go around to push them the direction we want them to go. So I've come all the way to the end of my next runner. And now I'm going to need a pair of scissors so that I can trim this. That way it ends on the inside of the basket. So now I have my pair of scissors. I'm just going to trim a little bit off of this, not very much. I want to trim off about halfway between these two spokes. Just like that. Now my walls have started to form, so I can start to add color. Just like before, unwind your runner. Stretch it out a little bit. This one starts where the old one stopped. Just overlap them, make a little cross, and just keep weaving. It's under this one, so it goes over the next one. And I'll hold on to it till I come back around. Now once your walls have formed, you don't have to pull on your runner anymore. If you keep pulling, your basket's just going to keep forming into kind of a bottle. And we don't want a bottle shape. We want the walls to be nice and flat. Now you don't have to use all of your runner. If you just want a narrow ribbon of color, you can always use your scissors and trim that off and go back to your natural or to a different color. Here's what you can do if a spoke breaks. So if you see here, I only have one part of my spoke. The other part broke off right here. So what I'm going to do is spread these pieces apart a little bit so it kind of forms a Y inside there. And now I'm going to take a dry piece of basket reed. So this one hasn't been in the water. Now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut it at an angle so that it has a little bit of a point. And I'm just going to push that point right down into that Y and kind of snug it in. So it sits right between those two pieces. And I'll just pinch them back together. And now I'll come up here to the top and cut this long piece off to where it's even with the other half of the spoke. And now I've fixed my spoke and I can keep weaving. So now as you weave, because this part of the basket is done, we don't have to get this wet. Now we just want to worry about our spokes. So when I put this in the water, I'm just going to kind of roll it in the water like this. All right, so I've added all the colors that I want. I'm going to finish my basket. It's a good size and shape. So now I'm going to finish the top. I'm going to start with any set of spokes. I'm going to take one set and bring it over in a curve in front of the next set of spokes. Now I want to measure about half the length of the basket. So that's about here, and that's where I'm going to cut off the spoke. So I measure the length of the basket and I'm just going to say that's about halfway. So I'm just going to cut it off. And this end that I cut, I'm going to tuck in between these two spokes, just like that. I'm going to do that all the way around. This last spoke is going to still go in a little curve in front of the next spoke right there. I'm still going to measure it about halfway down the length of the basket. And this time I'm just going to tuck it in right between those next two spokes. I'll go around and make sure everything's even. And if you have any pieces sticking off, you can use your scissors to trim those off. If the bottom of your basket is curved, you can use your thumbs to just gently push it in. And that'll give it a nice little rim to sit on. And there's your finished basket.
Now for the other type of basket, because some of your students will make your basket where the spokes are a little bit too wide. If you just try what we did earlier, where you just go over one set of spoke and put it on the inside, it sometimes won't stick. The spokes will end up flopping out. What you have to do for this one is you've got to braid it. So it's a different type of weave, but it's pretty much the similar one that you've been doing all the way around. Instead of going over a set of spokes and counting the 3, now you go under one set of spokes and then you go back over And then you can count 1, 2, 3, and cut it at the third one. And then tuck the rest of it on the inside. Okay. So you're going under instead of over. So now you go grab the next one, you go under, you go back over, you're back inside. Then I usually count 1, 2, 3, right about the third one. 1, 2, 3 right here. I'll clip it there. As I said before, it's better to clip it longer than you need it. You can always adjust it later. I'm putting pressure with my fingers to help push this in to create my braid. I come to the next one. Again, I go under set of spokes. I'm back over. I'll go back on the inside. Then I'll clip it. 1, 2, 3. I'll cut it there. And then I'll stick this on the inside of my basket. Put pressure with my fingers to push these down. Grab the next one. Pull on it. There's your braid starting to show up. You're under that set of spokes. You're over this one. Take this back on the inside. Count again. 1, 2, 3. All the way to there. Clip the excess. Tuck the excess back on the inside of your basket. Then you grab the next one. Under, over as you work your way around. So this one I'll go all the way to the end. Teachers can pause this as they're working with their basket, trying to figure out over, under, and over, under. But it's the same pattern you've been doing, over, under as you work your way around. So I'll go all the way to the end where there's only 2 left, and I'll show you how to thread those in. Now we're at the last 2. You've gone under, over as you work your way around. Now with this one, same thing, same pattern. You're going under, but now we have nothing to go against here. But we know we've got to go over this next set of the baskets. So what I'm talking about is this one. This is the one that you started with, that you first went under. You've got to go over it. So I'm under this set of spokes. I've got to go back inside there. So essentially all you're doing is you're threading it through that spot. So once you've threaded it through, you can clip it. And now what you've got to do is you got to pull it up just a little bit, because that's the one you've got to go under to come back out. And what I mean by that, if you've gone under, over as you work your way around, you've got to go under this one to come back out here to complete your pattern. And then you've got to go back on the inside of it. So I'm going to go ahead and take it. I'm going to thread it back through on the inside to finish my basket. I'm going to pull this out, show you once more. Okay, that's the one we've already cut. We know we got to go under this one. We got to go back inside where you started. Now having done that, this one needs to come under. And then you got to thread it back through. And once I've done that, that's my braid. We'll clip the excess off. And there's your basket.
Wado for your time to learn about Cherokee culture and history. Share what you learned today with someone else. For more information, contact Cherokee Nation Education Services Cultural Resource Center at education@cherokee.org or 918-453-5000 and ask for education services.